Greetings, Honourable Speaker, Hima Douglas, Premier Dr. Tangilangi, Cabinet colleagues, fellow members of Parliament, Acting High Commissioner of New Zealand to Niue, His Excellency Nigel Ewells, President of the Ecclesia Niue, Presidents of various church denominations, Secretary of Government, Director of Parliamentary Services, Clerk of Cabinet, Clerk of Assembly, Financial Secretary, Government Solicitor, Director Generals, Heads of Departments, General Managers of Corporations, Government Employees, CEOs and employees of the state-owned enterprises, President and members of the Niue Chamber of Commerce, private sector leaders and staff, General Manager of the Niue banking system, leaders of NGOs, the Council of Women, Youth, Sports, Crows, Talatalai, chairs and members of village councils, community leaders, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Niueans and friends of Niue, whakaue ke he atua ko whiwiaia tautolu, he māma he ahoni. I loto he whalefono ke pule, he hato tolo mutu. Pihia me puhala leo taongo he pulangi liko. Whaalofa lahi atu, ke he tau matutu puna he hato tolo mutu. Mr. Speaker, the theme for the new government's budget, together working hard to survive the serious economic times. Mr. Speaker, as required by Standing Orders Part 20, Sections 106 to 115, on appropriation bills and the Constitution of Niue Articles 56 to 58. I am pleased to present, as Minister of Finance, the annual appropriation budget estimates of the new government for the fiscal year 1st July 2020 to 30th June 2021. The agency states that the annual appropriation bill is tabled to the House today is recorded due to other priority applications prior to and including this time of the financial year. Mr. Speaker, we as a country is facing tough economic times due to the unplanned impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, we have projected a deficit budget of $7.2 million. We will continue to face extreme unfavorable economic and financial circumstances during this fiscal year and perhaps the following fiscal years to come. In fact, the whole world struggles from COVID-19, and this has forced countries to close their borders. Subsequently, the movement of people in terms of tourism has halted, thus affecting the whole economy. The compound effects, including decrease of imports, temporary closing of accommodation, tourism-related activities, tours, diving, fishing, rentals, local products. The consequences to government are the severe impact in its internal revenue, hence the deficit. However, we are committed that Niue remains COVID-19 free. We humbly ask that everyone should play a role in this national commitment. We acknowledge the good work of the former government and all the frontline workers, including all of us, for the competency and collaboration. We trust you will keep up the excellent work and vigilance to uphold our safety and well-being. Mr. Speaker, we have always been vulnerable financially due to our remoteness from the international markets, high transportation costs, poor natural resources, and a small population base. We struggle to keep a vibrant economy As such, we continue to strive to be prosperous, therefore maintaining the current standard of living that all of us enjoy today. We love our subsistence way of living, harvesting sustainably from the resources of the land and sea, as our forefathers used to practice. We have unique cultural and social values. In fact, our isolation can be a blessing with the pristine environment and oceans, clean water and air, and a peaceful society. Mr. Speaker, the new government has done its best to present this budget which respects and recognizes all citizens and the key organizations of our beloved nation, putting in place calculated strategies to avoid adverse decision-making and economic effect for the short to medium term. Looking ahead, prudent fiscal discipline and management of scarce resources becomes the most important task in controlling macroeconomic stability of our economy. Tourism has been our main economic driver, including government projects funded by our development partners in the areas of capital expenditure, climate change, environment, renewable energy, and community activities. Economic performance and results, however, for the financial year 30th June 2020 has shown a decrease in economic activities. This means we will apply austerity measures to oversee and control our financial management actions. Mr. Speaker, for the financial year ended 30th June, our domestic revenue sources have reduced significantly to more than 50% due to the loss of economic activities in the tourism sector. The tourism-related businesses are our major concern, and the livelihood of those and families that used to service the industry. The government will continue to work closely with the private sector, the banks, businesses, civil society, and village entrepreneurs to manage the COVID-19 impact on the economy. In spite of these undesirable facts, it is important we continue to build our resilience moving to the future. Mr. Speaker, the new financial year begins 1st July, and we are still considering the budget estimates. It is important in the interim that departments restrain from exceeding the 1.5% spending limit allowed in the Constitution. In the past, we have been lenient in how we treat this legal threshold. It is important we comply with our Constitution and existing laws to give credibility to our performance as a government. The actual estimates are based on the 2019-20 provisional expenditure. It is important that effective fiscal practices by the heads of departments and senior managers to ensure expenditure are controlled, to allow the deficit to be managed appropriately by all sectors across government. We will apply the existing financial management laws and regulations to ensure compliance and fiscal discipline as we progress. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, ensure that revenue budget targets are sustainably met. We plan to undertake financial management reform, put into action recommendations from the previous financial reviews and audit reports for accountability and oversight roles. We will look to reinstate the internal auditor position to strengthen internal control systems and perform regular audits of operations. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the new strategic plan 2016 to 2026, we will continue to be guided by the new Strategic Plan 2016-2026, Common Vision and Shared Values, New Way Kemunwina, a prosperous new way. It embraces and provides a platform to protect its people and the environment and all those who wish to live on New Way. Our immediate task is to successfully implement all the pillars of the strategic plan, working together with the departments, private sector, and all stakeholders to coordinate, analyze, and monitor performance results into the future. Department corporate plans, annual work plans, and budgets are key deliverables of the new strategic plan. The government encourages all New Wayans to manage and protect our resources. Good stewardship will ensure sustainable growth, and efforts will be made to foster and improve economic development, but offer all New Wayne residents a better standard of living. Mr. Speaker, we have instructed the officials to reprioritize the annual capital expenditure projects and work plans for the new financial year. Approved projects under implementation pending new cash injection must pause, pending urgent review and cabinet decisions. The essential capital projects are wharf repairs, airport runway resealing, and other important infrastructure projects, if and when required. Mr. Speaker, on the direct budget support, I am pleased to report government has received the annual direct budget support of $7.5 million from the Government of New Zealand for the 2021 financial year, including under-sector and project support. This is an ongoing commitment of the Government of New Zealand to New Way under the New Way Constitutional Arrangement and the special relationship as a round country. This financial support has contributed significantly to New Way's economic, social, and cultural growth. Our relationship with New Zealand remains strong, and New Zealand is New Way's primary development partner that contributes significant financial and technical support to our country's development, including the COVID-19 response package of $3.75 million received. New Zealand has a strong commitment to New Way in response to COVID-19 impacts. I therefore would like to sincerely thank the Government of New Zealand for the ongoing support. On the same token, I would also like to acknowledge other bilateral and development partners for their continuous support. Mr. Speaker, on the fiscal budget development, overall the budget, I believe, is a fiscally responsible and COVID-19 responsive budget in an alarming economic downturn. Over the years, the national budget has grown significantly due to the increase in domestic revenue, in the national revenue stream, and indirect project funds. However, the negative impact of the COVID-19 on the economy has dramatically changed the financial position, and this is stipulated in the table below. The actual revenue for 2019-20 came up to about $23 million, $477,000. And estimates for 2020-21, $25,270,000 million. Expenditure, $25,655,000 million. And expenditure for this financial year we are in comes to 32,504,000. As you can see in this statement, the deficit, the actual deficit subject to audit for 2019-20 came to $2,282,000. And as I have mentioned before, the projected deficit for this new financial year will be about $7,234,000. For the 2021 budget, overall government revenue is projected to decrease due to the collapse of the global economy and the international tourism industry. Therefore, it is imperative that the total expenditure estimates must be addressed to correlate with the reduction in revenue. With the projected deficit, it will be a challenge to maintain the current practices in the new fiscal year without seeking and securing supplementary revenue from our bilateral and development partners, and also considering the measures to reduce deficit. In Niue, for the last 10 years, there has been an annual average growth of 5.5% from $25.5 million in 2009 to $43.5 million in 2018. However, in considering the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, in the closing months of 2019 and opening months of 2020, there is a likelihood of a decrease in growth rate of the GDP. This is the most crucial reality we need to face in this fiscal year, and we are committed to ensure that the impact of any adverse effect is minimal and nobody is left behind. Mr. Speaker, on the estimates of revenue and government financial position, I now outline the total revenue estimates of $25.27 million for the new budget will be funded from the following sources. New Zealand direct budget support, $7.5 million. Taxes, $2.7 million. Duties, licenses, and fees, $5.67 million. Trading revenue, $8.2 million. And interest revenue, $1.2 million. The total comes to $25.270 million. External project funding and COVID response comes to $24.7 million. In terms of the total debts owed by businesses and individuals to the government is approximately $4 million. Mr. Speaker, the Niue Trust Fund is government financial asset and is governed by the trust deed. Value of the investment is approximately $6 million, and drawdowns on the trust is governed by the distribution policy outlined in the deed. The aim is to continue to build these funds for attractive return of investment for recurrent and development purposes. The major recurrent expenditure components of the budget are cost of sales, power and bulk fuel, personnel expenses of salaries and pensions, subsidies and welfare payments, maintenance and materials, travel and transport, and other expenses. Mr. Speaker, on our infrastructure, because of the relatively small size of our economy, we are often overlooked, particularly in funding assistance for significant infrastructure projects. In future years, the financial well-being in Niue will be closely linked to increasing the ability of the Bank on Niue to provide sustainable banking services as a standalone financial institution. Niue recently became the 59th member of the Asian Development Bank and this is part of the overall plan to increase Niue's financial resilience and sustainability. We don't recognize infrastructure as a standalone entity. Infrastructure development support the Niue National Strategic Plan and the vision to protect our people and our environment. In particular, the continued provision and increased stability of power, water, roading, and telecommunications. There is a substantial level of investment that is required to maintain this infrastructure, which continues to present financial challenges. The government will continue to implement the government's waste management strategy to ensure a clean, pristine, and pollution-free environment. The immediate management of Niue's landfills, disposal of hazardous, other solid waste, and liquid waste has started. The government intends, with some donor assistance, to invest in the use of new technologies and capital plan to minimize waste and improve recycling and collection, noting that major government projects have been stalled because of COVID-19 restrictions, which is a major setback on development and denial of economic benefits from these developments. On the public sector overview, the Niue Public Service Commission has an important constitutional role to perform on behalf of Cabinet, as stated under Articles 64 to 66 and 68. These tasks are mandatory and requires the Niue Public Service Commission to be the employing authority for the public service and have the general oversight and control of its organization and management. In addition, the Niue Public Service Commission shall be responsible for reviewing the efficiency and effectiveness of all departments and offices of the executive government. The government will endeavor to maintain government policies. However, we are also committed to review existing policies and support further transformation of the public service with the aim to improve effectiveness, efficient delivery of government services, and the well-being of public servants, public employees, private sector, civil society, and the people of Niue. Mr. Speaker, in the current state of leadership and economic downturn happening simultaneously, time and cooperation are utmost to ensure that the key constitutional institutions, including the Niue Public Service Commission, clearly understand their fundamental role, the vision and strategic policy framework of the Cabinet, and that society understand and share our difficulty and be tolerant of the measures that would be undertaken to save the economy. Mr. Speaker, on the state-owned enterprises, the Niue Philatelic and Numismatic Amendment Act 2011, Section 17, states that the estimate shall be submitted to Cabinet for approval. As part of this new government's effort in strengthening transparency and accountability, the estimates for the NPNC group will be tabled alongside the government budget and will adhere to the budget process, which includes the Public Accounts Committee. This is expected from all other government state-owned enterprises that operates under each respective legislation. As mentioned earlier, the impact of COVID-19 on the NPNC group estimates for the year 2021 is no different to the government or any other nation in the world as our economies continue to struggle. The NPNC group has conservatively projected a small profit margin, taking into consideration some of the audit findings that we need to address. One of which is the tax obligation the group will endeavor to meet with a monthly provisional tax arrangement in place not only will assist cash flow, but will comply with the Act. A new accounting system effective as of 1st July 2020 is now being implemented with technical support from a local accounting business. Mr. Speaker, the coins and stamps minimum guarantee are certain and rental from housing continues due to full occupancy. International and domestic non sales impacted and pawn store sales also affected. We will continue to monitor stock levels closely and will focus on high-moving products as other related products normally driven by tourism will be removed. Mr. Speaker, government state-owned enterprises were set up with a sole purpose of generating revenue. Whilst each in different state of reform, the ultimate goal is to effectively and efficiently generate revenue that will in turn support government's aspirations. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 has impacted the private sector significantly in terms of economic activities and loss of business income, and it is uncertain how long into the future. Government has supported this sector through a wage subsidy and redeployment of workers from the private sector. Various measures have been put into place by the bank in collaboration with the government to support this sector throughout this downturn period. Private sector has grown over the years with more businesses open to cater for local community and visitors. Although it has its own challenges, sustainable financing is required. Hence, and strengthening of the banking sector is priority to ensure the financing market is balanced and functioning for economic development purposes. For the non-government organizations and associations, recurrent grants and technical support for NGOs shall remain the same for the moment, as we have ongoing dialogue to analyze their performances and identify what areas need improvement. Village councils will have the same grants and operating funds. However, it is important that accountability reports are completed on time. The minister responsible will organize a meeting with village council to discuss what their challenges and priorities are for this financial year. On sectoral reforms, Mr. Speaker, the Civil Quarry Division and New Power have been returned under the public service after over 6 years operating as a state-owned enterprise under the NPNC. Work is also underway to strengthen government's regulatory agencies currently under the Utilities Department under the Ministry of Infrastructure. This will ensure the many building projects and developments within the community are closely regulated and conform to industry standards and code. Road maintenance is the highest priority as we strive to mend the Thames roads. Further, the establishment of Civil and Roading Division to reflect the importance of the work program. Equally, the Quality Division profile will be upgraded to recognize the importance of their planning, production, and delivery work in support of all national capital projects. Mr. Speaker, on the scholarships, over the next few years, some disruptions are to be expected with regards to our scholarship situation due to COVID-19. All students studying in Fiji and Vanuatu have been returned home and will not be returning until at least 2021, but not yet confirmed. Students studying in New Zealand are now back at their respective universities, however, under strict conditions. In 2012, Niue and New Zealand agreed on a new scholarship arrangement in place of the reverse scholarship. That new arrangement is still in place where AMFAD New Zealand would handle all financial aspects of the scholarship, with the New Zealand High Commission Office at Tāpeo being the focal point, working together with the Human Resource Development Unit Secretariat of the Public Service Commission. The annual quota of scholarships was 6, 4 to study in New Zealand, 2 for study in the region. Cabinet had the final say in approving the list of applicants identified through the selection process. Mr. Speaker, Australian-funded scholarships have a quota of 6 targeted specifically for school leavers of Year 13, Niue High School students. And study can only be carried out within the region, such as USP, Fiji. Currently, long-term scholarships are funded by the New Zealand and Australian governments and handled offshore through their respective agencies. AMFAD New Zealand since 2017 and DFAD Australia since 2018 through the New Zealand High Commission Office. Online applications for both New Zealand and Australia awards for study in 2021 have closed in April of this year and currently undergoing the selection process by these agencies. Short-term training and work attachment opportunities are also offered by AMFAD New Zealand annually, and study training periods range from 2 weeks up to 1 year. The same application and selection process is carried out by AMFAD New Zealand through the New Zealand High Commission Office here. Government will continue to work with other donor countries with regard to scholarship opportunities for our people and look at exploring other opportunities with our local USP Center. By October 2021, it is expected that our first cohort group of 18 students will graduate with their Masters in Business Administration, MBAs. These mostly public servants supported and sponsored by government. This will push Niue to the top of the Pacific as the nation with the most postgraduate qualifications per capita, something for us all to celebrate and use to inspire our up-and-coming generations. Mr. Speaker, on the successive human resource planning, with our small population pays the work and the challenges are ongoing. However, government are always looking for opportunities and a way we can meet our human resource requirements. As we have all seen over the years, there is no silver bullet, and there will also be some element of risk with whatever policy we will implement. Our scholars we have sent abroad, most have not returned. Many expats that we have brought over from our neighboring countries come receive their PR and gone on to greener pastures. We have even tried to entice some of our own young professionals in New Zealand to return home. However, many have not lasted. That is just the reality that we have to face and deal with. And it does not mean these efforts have failed. We will win some, unfortunately, we will lose some. Mr. Speaker, the effort is not only in the public sector, but also the private sector, where many operators are struggling to find the labor and skills they require. The public service has the public to private sector 1-year incentive package to entice some of the senior public servants into the private sector and allow the employees below them to move up in the ranks. This does not apply if you're leaving for New Zealand, in which case you'll have to pay this money back to government. Mr. Speaker, on overseas consultants, since became a member of Asian Development Bank, it's working coordinately with technical advisors through Asian Development Bank. Most of the other consultants were not recruited by the Commission, a process that needs to be returned to the Commission, who are the employing authority. Further, we will recruit local experts as consultants to do the work as required. First, reduce dependency on overseas consultants unless necessary. Mr. Speaker, on overseas public service employees, Niue currently only has 2 overseas-based public servants, Niue's High Commissioner to New Zealand and his First Secretary, both based in Wellington. With regards to government employees recruited from outside Niue, there are many both in the public and private sector. Niue relies heavily on foreign labor to fill crucial vacancies and skills shortages, mainly within the public services. They are providing a great service to our people, and we should afford them that same respect, dignity, and kind treatment that you would afford to a Niuean person. For those that are listening, we thank and appreciate all your efforts towards helping to develop Niue. Mr. Speaker, on medical referrals, the budget for medical referrals has increased so that we can cover the costs for patients to travel on the commercial Air New Zealand flight, but also to cover the cost of any medical evacuations. In the last financial year, 1920, the Health Department has referred 53 patients, 26 males and 27 females. Of these referred patients, 4 required to be referred as stretcher cases, which can cost up to $10,000 per patient for the travel cost alone. In the last financial year, we also had 3 medical evacuations, total over $200,000. The total budget spent on medical referrals in the last financial year is well over $370,000. We anticipate further increases to the budget for medical referral, and we try and manage health services against COVID-19 restrictions. It is hoped that New Zealand will agree to a Pacific or round country safety zone where our patients and their families do not require managed isolation upon entry into New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, on the Audit Act, so much attention on the outstanding audit reports and political desire to review the role of the New Zealand Audit Office. We do not think these two issues are correlated. However, to alleviate the confusion on the functions and duties of the government auditors, it would help if we consider having an audit legislation to clearly specify in simple language the audit obligations. Mr. Speaker, on the ICT e-government, we will explore and consider to further the e-government concept to improve public services in serving our people and visitors. It is important that we optimize the use of technological communication devices, such as computers, mobile phones, and internet to better utilize our telecommunication infrastructure to benefit our people, such as the existing 4G and the upcoming Manatua Cable project. The government will decide on the best policy to operate these services because of the high investment cost involved and to ensure good governance, transparency, and accountability prevails. Mr. Speaker, this month, Niue's very own Centre for Excellence in Information Technology, a project supported and funded by the Government of India, based at the USB Centre, will launch its first course in office automation and database-based management. It is expected that over the next 2 years, 150 students from both the public and private sectors would have completed certificate-level courses in information technologies and business application to help with their respective roles or private business. This is our institution, and fees charged are up to the government. It can be free, but just an example, the Cook Islands have a similar project and they charge $400 plus for one course. More information can be obtained from our Government Human Resource Development Unit of the Secretariat of the Niue Public Service Commission. Mr. Speaker, on the student loans, on 1st August 2013, Cabinet approved a new policy initiative for returning graduate students. One of these initiatives was to offer assistance to students who have student loan obligations, but were not covered under the reverse scholarship scheme. These students would have funded their own travel costs and taken out study loans to pay for a course over a period of 3 years. An application process is in place to activate this assistance. The government will pay 50% of their loans on a pro rata basis over a period of 3 years. Students who are on the reverse scholarship scheme have their loans paid off on a pro rata basis in accordance with the number of years spent on study and completion of same number of years service on return to Niue. Student loan repayments are handled through the Human Resource Development Unit of the Secretariat Public Service Commission. Scholarship students funded by AMFAT New Zealand do not fall into this category, as their loans are paid off by AMFAT New Zealand at the completion of their scholarship term. Mr. Speaker, on superannuation, we know the concern of many new government and private sector employees who are eager to invest in a recognized superannuation scheme to have a secure retirement plan in the future. The government will work closely with the QA agency Niue branch manager, who has approached the Kiwi Wealth, a New Zealand-owned and managed fund of the New Zealand Super Fund, ACC, and New Zealand Post, to see how they could consider our predicament. Mr. Speaker, on leave entitlements, each year leave entitlements for government employees entail a major cost on the recurrent budget. It is important that the employees who plan to take retirement leave apply in advance to avoid cash flow challenges. Mr. Speaker, on the new Public Service Act draft, the government is aware of the need to introduce a Public Service Act for government employees to improve the performance of the public service workforce and preserve the integrity of the public service as an attractive place to work and strengthen the leadership skills of our future leaders. It will help complement the public service regulations and the manual of instructions, which also needs to be reviewed. On the select committees, finally, Mr. Speaker, honourable members, as I outlined the above issues of the whole government stakeholders, we must remind ourselves our purpose of being here, that select committees can play a very important role in support of the government laws, regulations, policies, plans, etc., by ensuring the oversight role. Special committees can be formed and tasked to debate and analyze any technical subject required from time to time. In this way, we can learn, share, and understand well these issues that if we lodge questions and motions in the Assembly. I trust we can upscale our performances as elected leaders of Niue during this term. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the government will continue to uphold its policies and frameworks to ensure that it is adequately resourced and properly functioning, fulfilling its promises to the people of Niue to prioritize and strategically allocate financial resources for efficient delivery of services and to protect the people and the environment. Tānaki, Leveki, Pui Pui, Mānuiha. The budget estimates yet to include the expected performance outputs required to give support to the department activities as members would like to. But we look forward to the successful implementation process after the PAC sessions to critique the budget. It is important for all stakeholders to give support to the government budget and work programs as we journey together in this fiscal year. I will welcome your constructive debates, fellow members, in the hope our collective efforts carry the aspiration and trust of our people. Mr. Speaker, I commend the 2020-2021 budget estimates to the Noble Assembly. Kia whakamuina mai hea tua e whaswhiranga tupe nei, whakauela hi mahaki, may God bless Niue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.